You might think that going no contact, cutting all communication, complete silence, vanishing from their reach means it's over, that the narcissist will move on, find a new target and leave you in peace. But the biggest mistake victims often make is believing no contact is the finish line. In reality, it's just the beginning of a new chapter, one where their silent rage brews, their wounded ego plots a return, not out of love, but for control. In today's video, we're diving deep into the real reason why no contact doesn't end the narcissist. It transforms them into something more dangerous. This is when the hoovering begins. The manipulation turns seductive, the games become psychological warfare, and behind the scenes, smear campaigns may already be in motion. You need to understand, narcissists don't give up easily. When you stop feeding their emotional addiction, they don't disappear, they evolve. And if you're not ready, they'll come back in a form you never expected. So stay until the very end, because what you're about to discover will not only help you maintain no contact, but protect you from the storm that follows. And if you're on the path to healing, hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's walk this journey together. 1. Reason 1, because it was never about love, it was always about control. You might think that once you've blocked them, disappeared, and gone full no contact, it's over. But to a narcissist, the relationship never truly ends, because to them it was never about love. It was always about control. And control doesn't vanish just because you go silent. In fact, your silence makes them feel more insecure, more desperate to reclaim power, even if only in their imagination. Don't confuse absence with closure. For you, disappearing is a path to healing, but to them, it's an insult. They never saw you as a real person with genuine emotions. They saw you as a reflection of their ego, something to manipulate and dominate. And when that reflection suddenly vanishes without a final argument, a desperate plea, or a chance to play the victim, it feels like a personal attack. Narcissists can't handle powerlessness, and no contact is the ultimate power move, because it leaves no door open, no stage for them to perform, no reaction, no opportunity to flip the narrative. But here's the danger. They won't give up. Instead of accepting the end, they store that feeling like an unfinished file and quietly wait for the right moment to reach out again, maybe in 6 months, maybe in 2 years. Sometimes just to test whether you're still as easy to control as before. This is why so many survivors experience surprise hoovering attempts long after going no contact. Because for the narcissist, the game isn't over until they say it is. And they can't stand that you were the one to place the final period on the story. So no contact isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new phase, where you must stay stronger than ever. Not just to resist being pulled back in, but to avoid giving them any hint that you're still hoping for an apology, an explanation, or worse, that you still believe they can change. Silence is power, but clarity after silence is what keeps you truly free. Remember, they may fall quiet, but they never really leave the game. And that's why, even after no contact, you must remain vigilant. 2. Reason 2, because your silence is the most devastating psychological strike to their ego. A narcissist doesn't need your love. What they crave is your attention. They feed off your reactions, anger, confusion, heartbreak. It's all emotional fuel for their inflated ego. But when you go silent, you're not just cutting contact, you're cutting off their lifeline. You don't need to lash out. You don't need passive-aggressive posts. You don't even need to seek closure. Your silence says it all. You are no longer the center of my world, and that drives them insane. Because for the narcissist, being forgotten is worse than being hated. Irrelevance is their worst nightmare. Your silence robs them of access to your mind, your emotions, your energy. And without that, they lose control. Suddenly, they can't predict you. They don't know what you're thinking, how you're feeling, what you're doing. That mystery unnerves them, because narcissists can't manipulate what they can't read. They are no longer the gravitational force in your universe, and that isn't just painful, it destabilizes the illusion of their power. You've become an enigma, and to a narcissist, enigmas are threats. Don't think for a second that they've forgotten you. On the contrary, your silence becomes a haunting, unanswered question in their mind. How could someone who once depended on me now act like I don't even exist? Their ego is wounded in a way only you could inflict. And the cruel irony, they'll never admit it, but they'll obsess over it. They might replace you, post smiling photos, pretend you never mattered, but at night, when it's just them and their thoughts, it's your silence that echoes, reminding them that they no longer hold the throne in your story. So no, going no contact doesn't end the story. It detonates the illusion. And if you hold the line, no reaction, no response, no emotional bait, they're the ones left behind in the wreckage of their crumbling ego. 3. Reason 3. Because no contact means they no longer control the narrative. In a relationship with a narcissist, what they fear the most isn't being abandoned, it's losing control over the story surrounding you. From the beginning, they weren't just trying to manipulate your emotions. They were also manipulating how others perceive your relationship. They crafted a version of you, the overly emotional one, the clingy one, the too sensitive one who just couldn't let go. And in the eyes of outsiders, they positioned themselves as the patient, innocent, or even wounded party. But when you walk away from the game and go completely silent, they lose the spotlight. There's no more script to act out, no more reactions to provoke, and, most terrifyingly, no more narrative to control. You don't send angry texts. You don't beg them to come back. You don't post cryptic emotional messages online. You disappear, and that forces people to ask the question, why is someone who was once labeled weak now walking away with so much strength and peace? Your silence strips them of their power to define you. There's nothing left for them to distort, no target to manipulate. And that's when their panic begins, because the image they once controlled is now out of their hands. Even worse, if you start thriving, glowing, and never mentioning them at all, you're rewriting the narrative they tried to dominate. Every day you stay silent becomes a new chapter they have no access to. And for a narcissist, someone addicted to controlling the story, that is nothing short of ego death. They might try to create a false version of you through gossip. They might recruit allies to stir up confusion around your name, but when you don't engage in the game, you also can't be defeated by it. You're rewriting the story without uttering a single word. You don't need to expose them. The very fact that they've lost control is the exposure. So don't be mistaken, no contact is not the end. It's the moment you reclaim authorship of your life's story. Silently, intelligently, and completely beyond their control. 4. Reason 4. Because your silence forces them to face themselves. When you're still present, through texts, calls, explanations, or even anger, you unknowingly become the emotional mirror they use to avoid facing the emptiness inside themselves. Every time you react, they don't have to look inward. Every time you suffer, they can justify their cruelty. Every explanation you give becomes a mask they wear to cover up their internal cracks. But when you disappear, truly disappear, it's like removing the last mirror from a room that was already hollow. Silence isn't just a normal ending. To a narcissist, it's a temporary psychological death, because they don't just lose their emotional supply. They lose the place where they could shift blame, manipulate, and uphold the illusion that they're innocent and you are the problem. And here's what they never want to face: themselves. Without your noise, they're forced to hear the echoes within. The questions they've buried for so long begin to rise. If I'm perfect, why did they leave? If I'm right, why can't I control them anymore? If I'm strong, why do I feel so empty? Your silence becomes the loudest voice. It reveals the weakness they've hidden. It exposes their dependence on the emotions of others, and it makes them realize no one can fill that internal void except themselves. So, no contact isn't just a way for you to heal. It's the moment they are forced to face the truth they've always avoided, and that's what drives them insane. 5. Reason 5. Because your disappearance threatens the false image they've built. To a normal person, the end of a relationship might bring sadness, regret, even reflection. But to a narcissist, what they lose isn't you, the real you, but the version of you that served their carefully crafted false identity. They live in a world where image matters more than truth, where they are the victim, the good one, the misunderstood soul, and you, if you ever reacted, got angry, or broke down, became their evidence in this distorted narrative. But when you disappear, when you go silent, when you're no longer there to be misrepresented, the story begins to crumble. You are a living witness, the only one who's seen the truth behind the mask. And your silence? It's a threat to the control they're desperately trying to maintain over the people around them. They don't know what you'll say, what you'll share, or what you've realized. And to them, that loss of control is more terrifying than any confrontation. No contact doesn't just cut emotional ties, it severs power. It destroys their grip on perception. It removes the fake proof they need to keep playing the role of the victim. And that drives them insane, because you didn't just walk away from the relationship. You walked off the stage of a play they directed. And without you, the script falls apart. 6. Reason 6. Because your existence without them is a blow to their ego. They can never forget. There's one truth a narcissist is never prepared to face: the fact that you are still alive, still breathing, and even thriving without them. They can handle your anger, they can even enjoy your pain, but what they cannot tolerate is a reality in which you're absent in silence and still becoming a better version of yourself every single day. Because in the distorted world of the narcissist, your existence must always revolve around them. They're used to your reactions, your explanations, your attempts to fix things. Every head nod, every text, every sigh is proof that they still occupy your mind, and that fuels their ego. But when you leave, truly leave, without a sound, without a message, without a "let's still be friends," the narcissist begins to unravel internally. At first, they'll deny it. She's just being dramatic. Then they'll rage. How dare she leave me like this? Then they'll try to rewrite the story. I was the one who dumped her. She was always the problem. But as time goes on and you don't return, don't accidentally like a post, don't drop a cryptic message, don't leave a single emotional breadcrumb, their deepest fear begins to rise. Maybe I really don't matter anymore. Narcissists don't crave real love. They crave importance. They need to be the center, the reason, the gravity that pulls your attention in. When you cut off that source of emotional supply, they enter a kind of emotional starvation that nothing can satisfy. Even if they find someone new, it doesn't mean you've been replaced. In fact, every action you don't take becomes a haunting gap they can't explain away, and in that chaotic void, you still exist, not in their heart, but in their obsession. No contact doesn't mean they've forgotten you. On the contrary, no contact is the loudest way you can exist, through your silence. And that's something they cannot control, cannot manipulate, cannot twist. You don't give them closure. You don't give them one last conversation. You don't give them the role of the misunderstood victim. What you give them is a closed door. And that drives them more insane than any argument ever could. Deep down, they wonder, how are you living? Are you suffering? Do you still think about me? And with no answers, they're forced to confront the emptiness within themselves. No contact isn't just the end for the manipulator. It's the beginning of a truth they can't deny. You don't need them, and you never truly belong to them. 7. Reason 7, because they can't handle uncertainty. And your silence is a mystery that haunts them. One of the core traits of a narcissist is an obsessive need for control, especially control over your emotions, your reactions, and even your reality. They don't just want your love or obedience. They want to understand how your mind works, what you're feeling, and how to manipulate it to their advantage. That's why your silence is more than just absence. It's a blackout on the narcissist's control radar, and that alone drives them insane. In the narcissist's mind, empty space is terrifying because emptiness offers no answers, no performance, no validation, and, more importantly, no emotional fuel. They will attempt to reopen every channel they once used to control you: guilt, nostalgia, obligation, your empathy. But nothing works. The doors are shut, and you are simply gone. At that point, you are no longer just an ex. You become an unsolved puzzle. And nothing tortures a narcissist more than a question without a clear resolution. They begin to obsess. They construct fantasies. Are you with someone new? Are you exposing them? Are you plotting revenge? Or worse, are you actually happy? While you are using silence to heal, to rebuild, to rise again, they are left spiraling in their own invented scenarios, tormented by what they don't know and can no longer control. Unlike you, who had to confront real pain and learn to move forward, narcissists don't know how to sit with uncertainty. They don't know how to let go of a narrative where they aren't the main character. And that's why your silence haunts them. They'll try hoovering, love bombing, threats, playing the victim, anything to pull you back into the script. But when you don't respond to any of it, they're forced to sit with the unbearable truth of their powerlessness. Narcissists are terrified of ambiguity. And when you stay silent, not explaining, not arguing, not playing the good one or the villain, you leave them alone with their own shadows. You don't need to say, "I'm okay." You don't need to write, "I forgive you." You don't need to prove a thing. That very lack of clarity is the clearest message of all. Because you no longer exist for their validation, you no longer live to satisfy their curiosity, you are no longer a character in their self-serving story. Your silence isn't just a tactic, it's your final declaration. I've returned to myself, and you're no longer a part of that. And if you think they've forgotten you, think again. Narcissists don't fear hatred. They fear being forgotten, because being forgotten means losing control. Being forgotten means the game is over. And for them, the game is everything. The quieter you are, the louder your absence becomes. The more still you remain, the more chaos they feel. The more detached you stay, the more they obsess. Even when you've moved on, even when your life no longer includes them, they're still playing out new scripts in their mind, just to fill the void your silent exit left behind. Reason: 8, because you've become someone they can no longer control. A free human being. There's one thing the narcissist never expected you to become: someone who outgrew their control. They always believed you'd come back, that you still needed them to feel worthy, that you'd forever live inside the box they built for you, where your emotions existed to serve them, where your boundaries were optional, and where your identity only mattered if it validated their ego. But when you went no contact, you didn't just walk away. You began a journey of becoming unmanipulable. You started reclaiming your worth. You started building boundaries, speaking truths you once swallowed, saying things like, "No, I'm not available for this conversation. I deserve respect." And that transformation terrifies them, because now you're no longer the familiar supply. Predictable, pliable, easy to provoke. You've become someone they can't reach. Not because you're hiding, but because you've evolved too far beyond their game. You no longer need their apology. You no longer crave their understanding. You've stopped seeking closure from someone who never truly listened. And when you reach that state, an inner freedom they can't touch, you disorient them in the deepest way. Because how can they manipulate someone who no longer needs to be understood. You're no longer prey. You've become a mirror reflecting the smallness, emptiness, and desperation behind their grand facade. You are no longer who you were. You are who they can never reclaim. And for a narcissist, that is the ending they cannot accept. Yes, they may replace you with new supply. They may pretend not to care, but deep down, they know they've lost something irreplaceable. The version of you they once controlled and who now no longer exists. And that is perhaps the most powerful reason why going no contact is never the end for them. No, you see, no contact isn't the end for the narcissist. It's the beginning of a collapse they can't control. It's panic disguised as silence. It's desperation hidden behind their fake indifference. Every boundary you set, every time you don't react, every day you continue living your own life, is another cut to the rope they once used to tie you down. And here's the truth. You don't need to destroy them. You just need to stop playing their game. When you walk away, they start a spiral. When you go quiet, they hear the truth they've been avoiding. When you choose peace, they lose the strongest weapon they ever had, your emotional response. You've gone farther than you realize. You are no longer the person who begged, endured, or wished. You are free, and you don't need anyone's permission to live that way. If this video spoke to your soul, hit subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and join us on this journey of healing and empowerment. Share this video with someone who needs this message today, because sometimes a single reminder at the right moment can save a soul.